He may have been gone a long time, but there's something new out from Louis Armstrong, the American jazz legend who died decades ago. Stephanie Decker has more.
Hello, darling.
More than 40 years after his death, the voice remains unmistakable. His music, inspirational, one of a kind. It's the last recording ever made of Louis Armstrong playing live on trumpet, and it's now been released for all of us to hear for the first time.
Mighty glad you're back where you belong.
The date was the 29th of January 1971, and the venue, the National Press Club in Washington. In less than 6 months, the jazz legend would be dead after suffering a heart attack. But even though he was already frail, this performance was something special.
The way he constructed his solo is very different, and it's almost as if he's saying, you know, I still got it.
Often credited with inventing the jazz solo, this release offers a final glimpse of one of jazz's greatest performers live on stage. The songs have now been compiled, and the album is already one of the top 5 selling jazz albums online.
Oh, thank you, Lord.
A poor boy from New Orleans who became a musical icon known throughout the world. Armstrong once said the best way to die was to be on stage.
You were very kind.
And on this day in 1971, some of those listening felt they were hearing a final goodbye.
Boy, too. Just a boy from New Orleans.
Stephanie Decker, Al Jazeera.
The legend lives on. Riccardi has written a biography of Louis Armstrong, and he's an archivist at the Louis Armstrong House Museum. He joins us now via Skype from New Jersey. So what does this newly released recording tell us about Louis Armstrong that his legions of fans around the world didn't already know or appreciate about his music?
Well, it shows him at a time in his life when he was really not in the best of health. He'd been dead in 5.5 months. But it shows that till the very end of his life, he was committed to putting on an evening of great entertainment for his fans by playing the trumpet, by singing, by telling jokes, by just being a force of nature. This recording shows him so close to the end of his life, still getting it done.
And it's hard to believe that he died more than 30 years ago. Just how popular, how relevant does his music remain today, particularly with the younger generation?
Oh, it's incredible. You mentioned that I'm the archivist for the Louis Armstrong House Museum. That's actually Louis Armstrong's house, and it's in Corona, Queens, and we get visitors from around the world and young people, young musicians who play at the Armstrong House, who are carrying the torch for Armstrong's music. He's been dead for 40 years, actually. He was born in 1901, and his music is still alive, and you can hear traces of his innovations in all sorts of music.
Where do you think this new performance, if we can call it new, at least newly released, where does it rank in the extremely rich archive of music that he left behind?
Well, it's one of those things, from a musical standpoint, it's obviously very late in the game, so it's not very innovative, musically speaking, but as a historical artifact, as the last known concert recording of Louis Armstrong in his element on stage, you can't top it. Because doctors had told him to stop playing the trumpet in 1969, and he did not play it for about 2 years. But in the end of 1970, he began feeling a little stronger. He began playing the trumpet more. And when you hear him play at the press club, it's a revelation. He takes a solo on Hello, Dolly that is unlike any other solo he ever took on the song. And everything else is there that you would expect from a Louis Armstrong concert. It's short, it's sweet, it's only about 30 minutes long, but it really is just a beautiful document of him with his fans in his element at the end of his life.
And there's obviously no doubt that he was extremely popular with the fans, popular both on and off stage. But he did face some criticism from fellow African Americans for not using his back then quite unique status and access to support publicly at least, the civil rights movement. Was this a calculated decision he made in order to keep the privileges he'd gotten, or did he grapple privately with this issue, whether or not to do more when he could?
Well, Armstrong was a civil rights pioneer. He broke down many, many barriers for his race. He was the first African-American to host a nationally sponsored radio show. He had it in his contract that he wouldn't play a hotel he couldn't stay at. But as he once said, he believed in positive actions and not a lot of words. So when people were marching and things like that for civil rights movements, Armstrong was touring the world with an integrated band performing songs like "What Did I Do to Be So Black and Blue?" So he had his own way of making racial statements. And in 1957, when he took on the United States government and blasted President Dwight Eisenhower for his handling of the Little Rock High School school integration crisis, he put his career on the line for civil rights, and not a single black jazz musician stood by his side and agreed with him. And that was something that hurt him deeply, and people forgot about that for years. They totally forgot that he made that stand. So it's also one of those things that I think it's high time to reassess Louis Armstrong's role in the civil rights movement.
A man who knew just about everything about Louis Armstrong, Ricky Riccardi, thanks very much for sharing your thoughts with us. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And still to come in the news hour, don't trust this man when it comes to Iran, says a former Israeli security chief. More on that coming up. Also ahead, just as he battles to save his career, allegations that Nicolas Sarkozy took money from Gaddafi have now resurfaced. We're back live in France in just a few minutes. And the St. Louis Cardinals stamped their authority in Milwaukee. Robin has all the latest details in sport.